Welcome to the week between Christmas and New Year's. Here are the rules. You are required to watch a minimum of one season of a TV show. You can wear stretchy pants to any event, no matter how formal. If you go to the gym, never mention it. There are no days of the week. There is no time. And you can eat whatever you want whenever you want. Steak and vodka in the morning, eggs and bacon at night. There are no meals. There's no breakfast. There's no lunch. There's no dinner. The only time we will look at a clock is the last 10 seconds of the year. And if you're single, that's the moment you're searching around to see which rando you're going to hug awkwardly at midnight. Welcome to the Thunderdome.
Comedian Jared Freed, nailing it. I call it Taint Week. Similar rules. Welcome to it. Thank you for joining me and pressing play in today's podcast. No expectations for the show this week, but I do have a great conversation with my good friend Allison Jaslow for you, who has announced that she is running for Congress in North Carolina's 3rd District, fighting 3rd. She is a combat veteran. She's the former head of IAVA, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. She is a good friend of mine, and she is on the show today to talk about her run for Congress, hopefully raise a little money. We were live last night on YouTube and Substack if you want to go watch it, but it's coming up after a few clips. I didn't really gather a whole bunch of news. I am staying away from it as much as I can, but I did see a few clips that I wanted to share, a couple of them over the past couple of days. I hope you had a great holiday or whatever you did, whatever you're doing. We're now in the thick of the Taint Week, and I'm very happy to have you here. So I'm going to start the clip show with another funny clip. This is from comedian Jason Salmon. Thank you to my friend Kimberly Kelly for giving me a heads up on this. She sent it to me. Very funny. I like it a lot.
Another weird week. Christmas poem edition. 'Twas the day after Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring. Because, like most of 2025, the house is out on recess. The Prez hung his name on Kennedy Center with care, and that's why the Christmas jazz show wouldn't go there. While he sat nestled snug in his cabinet meeting, his Chicago deployment had a Supreme Court defeating. While Obama spent Christmas at a children's hospital, the president just prayed for an Epstein acquittal. They released just a fraction of those terrible files, but his ties to the president went on for miles. They made us a list, redacted it twice, they doctored a video and said that should suffice. People weren't having it. It's gotten quite old. 10 co-conspirators, unlike Kash Patel told. Was the president one? That needs investigation, though I'm sure that he'll tell us to blame immigration. While the president thinks that he should be exempt, Bondi just wants to be held, and she will, in contempt. So they distract with boat bombs and Nigerian strikes, even made threats to Greenland, the distraction they lack. Their search for the files feels a tad insincere, but then Stefanik misplaced her entire career. For the rest of the files, guess we just have to wait. Meanwhile, hiring's as sluggish as the president's gate. He forgets it's our house, and for him, just a rental. He's got more petty plaque work than the Real Housewives dental. While Barry at CBS acts an immigrant story, Ice beating up Santa is this week's allegory. As the stockings got hung and the chestnuts got roasted, we all got disappointed with what the president posted. He claimed Democrats had some explaining to do, but check the mirror. That Dem in those photos was you. He says that these tariffs are not what they seem, but farms can't sell soybeans and they're halting Jim Beam. Nostalgia for Christmases past makes us whole, which explains this dude's weird fascination with coal. Since JD and his Indian wife had a fight, he thinks we're all under fire for just being white. They halted wind projects and gave money to oil. They polluted our water and depleted our soil. It's been silly and petty and a very weird year, but out-weird them with joy and sometimes have a beer. Y'all keep staying ornery and I'll continue to yap. Keep resisting the chaos, but sometimes take a nap. Because this journey is long to reach positive ends. So to all a good weekend. Stay ornery, my friends.
Yeah, very funny comedian Jason Salmon. Thanks, Kimberly, for sending that to me. I love it. Now let's go to a news report from MS Now, the reporter talking about New York Times reporting on Doge and whether it worked or not. Thought this was good and interesting and important. You might want to know it.
The goal may have been to reduce federal spending by $1 trillion, but now a new report says that federal spending didn't go down under DOGE. It actually went up. According to the New York Times, many of the items that DOGE claimed it saved the most on turned out to be wrong. Quote, of the 40 biggest claims on DOGE's list, the Times found only 12 that appeared accurate, reflecting real reductions in what the government had committed to spend. The Times notes, quote, while the group did make thousands of smaller cuts, jolting foreign aid recipients, American small businesses, and local service providers, those amounted to little in the scale of the federal budget. The Times reports that a White House spokesman declined to answer specific questions about DOGE's work, instead sending this statement, quote, President Trump pledged to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse in our bloated government.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's the reporting from the New York Times via MS Now. And now here is Senator Bernie Sanders. He sat down with Jay Tapper on CNN's State of the Union yesterday, and he says there needs to be a moratorium on building these AI data centers.
We're seeing data centers sprouting all over the country, raising electric bills for people in the communities, etc. I think we need to be thinking seriously about a moratorium on these data centers. Frankly, I think you got to slow this process down. It's not good enough for the oligarchs to tell us it's coming, you adapt. What are they talking about? They're going to guarantee health care to all people? What are they going to do when people have no jobs? What are they going to do, make housing free? So I think we need to take a deep breath, and I think we need to slow this thing down. One way to do it would probably be a moratorium on data centers.
There you go. Moratorium on data centers. I thought that was important and also good. And this great Rob Reiner clip is bouncing around. I've seen it so many times. You might have seen it or heard it already, but I figured I'd share it here now on the clip show.
Donald Trump is the single most unqualified human being to ever assume the presidency of the United States. He's mentally unfit. Not only does he not understand how government works, but he has no interest in trying to find out how government works in America. Lyndon Johnson was, except for the Vietnam War, which is a terrible stain on his legacy, was probably the most effective and successful president as far as domestic policy is concerned, second to maybe Franklin Roosevelt. So when we're talking about Lyndon Johnson and Donald Trump, they couldn't be at further ends of the spectrum.
Rest in power, Rob Reiner. Sorry for cutting you off, legend, but I thought that was good. And finally, Jimmy Kimmel. You may have seen this over the holiday as well. He delivered a scathing Christmas Day message in an address he was asked to give on the British media outlet Channel 4, UK's Channel 4. It's the Channel 4 annual alternative Christmas message, the long-running counter-programming speech that airs in opposition to the traditional royal Christmas message. And so just here is a clip of it. I think it's great. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching again.
And I can tell you that from a fascism perspective, this has been a really great year. Tyranny is booming over here. You may have read in your colorful newspapers, my country's president would like to shut me up because I don't adore him in the way he likes to be adored. The American government made a threat against me and the company I work for, and all of a sudden we're off the air. But then, you know what happened? A Christmas miracle happened. Well, it was September. It was a September miracle. But the holiday does seem to come earlier and earlier every year, doesn't it? Millions and millions of people stood up and said, no, this is not acceptable. People who never watched my show, people who were on record saying they hate my show, spoke out, they marched, they did this all to support the right to a free expression of speech. And because so many people spoke out, we came back. Our show came back stronger than ever. We won, the president lost, and now I'm back on the air every night, giving the most powerful politician on earth a right and richly deserved bollocking.
Yes, indeed. Love it. So great. And now it's time to get to today's guest. I've got Allison Jaslow joining me. I've known Allison for over 10 years. She's become a close personal friend and mentor to me, and she told me over the weekend that she's announced she's running for Congress. Republicans redrew a North Carolina district held by the GOP incumbent, And it looks like now a Democrat could win it, could potentially backfire. They might have created a window for a Democrat to make what has been a reliably Republican neighboring seat more competitive. And so Allison Jaslow is stepping into it, up for it, and I'm very excited to have her here joining me today. She is a combat veteran. She did 2 tours in Iraq. She is a dedicated public servant, the former chief executive officer of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, now running for North Carolina's 3rd District, the fighting 3rd. Allison Jaslow, forcongress.com is the website. I hope you'll consider a donation. You can follow her on social media as well. All those links in the show notes. And we caught up last night. Here it is right now, my friend, and yours, Allison Jaslow. Okay, it is Sunday, and I was not planning on working or going live. It's Taint Week, which means nothing happens, nothing gets done. There are no expectations. But then I got a phone call last night from my good friend who's joining me now, Allison Jaslow, who is a close personal friend, a confidant, and a mentor, a born leader, a combat veteran, and she's running for Congress, she told me. And I said, well, then I'm not working. I'm going to work. Whatever that means. I want to go live with you, and I want to try to raise money live and with the podcast because you are running in North Carolina's 3rd District. You've just announced. I am blown away and so excited. I'm excited for the people of North Carolina's 3rd District. I'm excited for you, and I'm so happy to have you here. Congrats on your announcement. This is a big deal. You're one of my favorite people, and I'm so excited to talk to you today, Allison.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Of course. I mean, you have done a lot in your life and career, from the military to working as chief of staff in Congress to running campaigns to the prestigious position as the executive director of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, which is the most respected veterans organization for veterans, maybe overall, certainly of that generation. And then we talked a lot about what your next move would be, and you were thinking about it, and then the Republicans changed the district, and maybe not in their favor. What led to this decision?
Well, as you mentioned, North Carolina was a part of the redistricting wars that have been happening across the country this year. But actually, North Carolina has been redrawing its map for years. And so there wasn't really any more gerrymandering to be done, but they went ahead and redrew the maps to try and target a Democratic member of Congress, and inadvertently made one of their own members much more vulnerable. And in a year where you're seeing Democrats overperform, now that we're actually having elections, it is a very winnable seat. If we have the right candidate in the race who runs a strong professional campaign, it's a real pickup opportunity for Democrats in North Carolina this year.
And the primary is, you got to get through this first, and it is in March. Is that right?
Correct. March 3rd.
March 3rd, not a lot of time to campaign and to raise money. And so it's a tight turnaround. It's like 8 weeks.
Yes. Early voting starts the middle of February. So
wow. And right now there's only one other candidate announced. I'm not even talking about that person because I'm fully in the tank for Allison Jaslow. I got to admit, normally I try to stay objective and so on, but I mean, I can't with our history, with our friendship. I'm fully in the tank and supporting you. And I hope people will go to AllisonJaslowForCongress.com, learn more, and consider a donation if you're listening to this, because Allison is the best. Why? Why do you want to run? You know all the inner workings specifically of this body, the House of Representatives. You worked there. You know your way around the building. You know your way around politics. Talk to us a little bit about your experience there, and then why you decided to put your name on the ballot.
You know, I'd say a couple of things, Pete. First of all, you know me well enough to know that I'm not BSing when I say this, but that at a time where people are saying, like, where are our leaders, where are our leaders, where are our leaders, it's not like me to be a part of the chorus, but to find my way to step up and lead. And I'm actually grateful for the opportunity to be able to do so now that the seat looks so winnable. And to your point, you know, I have a lot of experience in the political world. So I know all too well some of the undesirable aspects of this process, but I also know that it turns away really good people of character. And I think one of the reasons why Congress is where it is right now is because not enough good people who are tough and willing to put themselves through this process are willing to step up. But if more of us do, then Americans will have the leadership that they deserve in Washington.
That's a great, absolutely honest explanation too, because I think that things are getting dirtier and filthier and harder, especially to raise money. You have to have, how do you go run for Congress, which is a full-time job, put your name on the ballot, and also still pay your mortgage or rent or your health insurance? It's close to impossible. And not to mention the fact that if you do decide to run, you're getting attacked from all sides and everybody you know and love. It's a scary thing to do, to run for any office now more than ever in our lifetime. I think that's fair to say. So why do you want to do it specifically? What are the issues in North Carolina or for the country that you're most concerned about, that you think you can make a difference on in the House?
To your point about barriers to even being a candidate, if I didn't have the career that I had to this point, this wouldn't even be possible for somebody from my background. I come from a very working class household. In fact, my stepdad was a grocery store worker, thankfully had a really great contract from the UFCW. So I have a very strong appreciation for organized labor as well. It's important that somebody who understands the experience of working people be representing them in Washington. This is a district that is a very working class district that I'm running in. It's a district that also has 2 military installations in it, so a large military and veterans community as well. And they deserve a seat at the table as well. And so it was very rewarding for me, as you mentioned before, to be CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, where I was able to testify before Congress and try to give us a seat at a table in that way. And I think this allows me to take that service to the next level.
Talk to us a little bit about your former life, your resume. Most interestingly to me is your 2 combat tours in Iraq, where you achieved the rank of captain. Why did you join the military to begin with? How old were you?
Joining the Army was the dream from when I was 13. I think it was around the time that I lost my dad by suicide that I fell head over heels in love with my country. Maybe, in retrospect, I needed to throw myself into something, but my desire to serve my country and my fellow countrymen began way back then. And I thought I'd be in the Army for a career. I went to school on an ROTC scholarship. I actually started the fall of 2000. Of course, in my sophomore year, the trajectory of my service changed. We became a nation at war, first in Afghanistan, then in Iraq. And by the time I was sworn in and went to my officer basic course, it was within months that I found myself on a plane to Iraq. My first deployment was an assignment as a platoon leader where I first led a logistics mission that was base confined, but then it got contracted out. So my soldiers became a force protection platoon, which meant that they were in charge of both security on the base and then also protecting convoys that went across Iraq. I ended up doing 2 missions, or I was assigned to 2 missions during that deployment. So the convoys that I went out on would usually go out and back in the same day versus like some of my soldiers would go from where we were in Taji to all the way down to Kuwait and back, or all the way north to Mosul and back, or out to the Syrian border. Mine were usually in the Baghdad area of operations. That definitely was the more, let's call it, dangerous deployment. Literally dodging roadside bombs, ducking tracer rounds, et cetera. As folks know, convoys regularly got hit. In Iraq, wasn't a infantry or other type of, combat arms mission, but definitely in the crosshairs of what was going on over there. I came back to Fort Carson for about a year and change, where I was stationed stateside, Fort Carson, Colorado, and then deployed again in January of 2007, where I was there for about 60 days before the surge was announced. And so that deployment ended up being about 15 months. It was during that deployment that I decided to get out of the Army, in part because, I really took the Army values seriously, which is we wore them on a dog tag around our neck. But I saw a lot of my leaders actually not living out the values in the same way that I was. And it was hard for me, after putting the Army on a pedestal at such a young age, to accept that in my leadership. So I made the difficult decision to get out. And what has remained is my desire to still serve. And so I've been very grateful to, at junctures throughout my life, find different people or causes to serve that I feel like could advance the betterment of our country.
You have done all kinds of different service at this point. And I mean that, you continue to. The desire remains. I mean, you're the perfect person to be running for Congress. Your resume, your background, your desire. I think your lack of compromise in terms of your integrity, you're uncorruptible. I don't think you could sleep at night if you did something that you felt was dishonest or corrupt in any of the jobs and roles that you've held. And I think that's evidence based on when you have resigned from many of the places that you have, because it just wasn't working for any number of reasons. Talk to me about your role at IAVA. What did you do? Tell us just a little bit about, in case people don't know, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, this organization, how you got involved and how you rose to the top of it.
Well, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America is the nation's leading post 9/11 generation veterans advocacy organization. When I left my last role on Capitol Hill, where I was working for a congresswoman from Illinois, I was looking for like the next best way to make an impact, and ultimately found my way to Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, which we also call IAVA. I first started as a political director, but very quickly, because I had a background of being a chief of staff, the founder at the time started talking to me about being his chief of staff because he was looking for one. And so I pretty quickly was promoted into being chief of staff. This was in 2016. Headed into 2017, when we launched our She Who Born the Battle campaign, which did two things. It didn't just advocate for women veterans and our unique needs, but I will always be proud of the fact that IAVA as an organization was willing to not just make women veterans a priority, but in 2017, we made women veterans the priority. And so I became executive director at that time. I was then the face of the campaign. I was the organization's face on Capitol Hill in Congress and with the administration. I left the organization in 2018, but it was a great privilege to return in 2023 to be the CEO. Though I was executive director before, I was still the number 2 of the founder. This time I was the head honcho. And it was really rewarding to allow the organization to make a huge impact, not just during my tenure as CEO, but especially throughout the transition of the current administration. I did a lot of advocacy around what we should want in a Secretary of Defense, and or what would be really concerning about a Secretary of Defense. In fact, I tried very hard to get the media to focus on things that I thought were most consequential in Pete Hegseth's background versus some of the things that they were drawn to. He, of course, is Secretary of Defense now. We're living in a world where he is providing not so great leadership for our military, unfortunately. But it was very rewarding to lead the organization during that time, to also help people understand, as we were booting out service members who were qualified to serve, why we wouldn't want to do that in the age of the all-volunteer force, among other things. And then twice while I was back at the organization, I also got to testify before Congress again. And I hope our members would say that I really brought it, that I really channeled our generation of veterans and made those 5 minutes matter before Congress. And unfortunately, when I did so earlier this year, the incumbent member of Congress, who I'll be running against this fall, who sits on the committee, didn't even care to show up.
Right.
So
talking about the current incumbent whose seat you're running, he's in the seat, North Carolina's third. His name is Greg Murphy. He's a physician. He's a urologist, which we won't make any jokes, but you could certainly talk about his record and what he has done, not done, shown up for, not shown up for. What do you want to say about him other than, he didn't show up for a committee that he's on? He's supposed to be there when you were testifying as the head of the premier veterans organization of our generation. He was absent that day.
Yeah, I mean, not only do I think that voters should consider kicking out somebody who can't even show up and literally do their job in the most basic sense, but they should consider hiring somebody who does. I have a track record of showing up for a lot of people and also for the constituents I'm supposed to represent. Right. Just until earlier this year, it was representing 425,000 members and supporters, and also, millions of post 9/11 generation veterans. And I will continue to do that if I'm elected to Congress, but also show up better than those who are in power right now are showing up for working people. I know what it's like to live on the edge, and the cost of living is crushing people right now. They are also getting either kicked off of their healthcare, or their healthcare costs are going up because of such failed leadership in Washington right now. And so I plan to every day wake up and show up for not just, the military and veterans community, as I have done for so many years, but also for working people everywhere who deserve better representation in Washington than they're getting right now.
I have no doubt about that, knowing you. Of course, I can't imagine anybody working harder than you and having more clarity, moral clarity than you on the job that is obviously lacking for any Republican in Congress, including Greg Murphy in North Carolina.
You know what has blown me away as it relates to those in Congress right now?
Go ahead.
And this, I think you see this even on the Democratic side in some instances, but I had more courage when I was 22, when I got on a plane and was shipped off to war, than most members of Congress have today. And given the times that we're in, it's pretty fucking pathetic.
I think there's a motivation for that. And I think that that's where it begins. Of course, it's about courage, but it has to start with the incentive for why you're there in the first place, right? Like,
fair.
The courage comes with the incentive and the motivation to be there. You decided to join the Army. You were shipped off to war. You did your duty in combat. And that's nothing compares to that in terms of, the kind of courage you're stepping into a war where what are congressmen scared of? I mean, it's losing their seat. Obviously, things are scarier now than they've ever been. The threats to people's lives, there's no doubt there's more concern about that. But I don't think that's necessarily what you're criticizing in terms of courage lacking with many in Congress now. It's not that they're concerned about their personal safety or the safety of their family. It's they're concerned about their reputation or their job, or frankly, in many cases with Republicans, getting in trouble with their cult leader, I think.
I mean, I guess I understand those dynamics too, but you mentioned this earlier. Like, I don't know if I was in their shoes, I'd be able to live with myself with some of the,
right.
Right. With some of the stuff that they're being forced into. You see glimmers here and there. I give Roger Wicker a whole lot of credit for asking for an IG investigation into Signalgate. It's something that should have been investigated. There still has not been adequate accountability following that investigation.
Yeah.
But, you see moments where, especially when there's national security concerns, some Republicans in Congress are stepping up, but, a lot of them could be doing a lot better than they are and still might not keep their jobs at the end of the day.
If you're elected, I'm sure that you would obviously be more than qualified to be on certain committees, Foreign Affairs Committee. What would you think about what is happening right now in the Pacific and the Caribbean with these targeted assassinations? Some call them murders, some call them unlawful, some call them illegal. Not to mention the fact that there seems to be a real drum beating for a new war with Venezuela. What do you have to say about these targeted assassinations and the potential for another war?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. One, I'm not a JAG attorney, so I don't feel like I'm in the best position to talk about what is or isn't illegal. What concerns me the most is the utter lack of congressional oversight that's taking place right now. You see few attempts, but why the Secretary of Defense wasn't dragged in to brief Congress 30 days after all of this happened, I don't know. But I think it would be helpful to understand what we're trying to do here, which is like what we should do for any war, right? And what we failed to do throughout the course of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, right? I mean, it made perfect sense to go into Afghanistan after 9/11. what we didn't do was continually challenge ourselves as a country to ensure that like we had clarity of mission and goals, and then it was worth people still risking their lives to achieve those goals. We lost sight of them. And I would hope that should we consider going into another conflict of some sort, that we would go through the same process. And I don't think we should be allowed, the administration should just be allowed to like wage a quasi-war without Congress asking tough questions of it.
Yeah.
But it's par for the course for a Congress that's abdicated its war powers authorities my entire adult life.
Right.
So.
Right. I think the other thing that's interesting about you running for Congress and being in Congress is your ability to organize people, your ability to lead people, your ability to bring people together. I got to the great honor to watch you lead these Patriotism and Pints. Is that what it was called?
Patriotism, yes.
Pints and Patriotism, where you and a colleague would go into different towns in America, different bars with a whole bunch of veterans and lead a conversation about their interests. And I remember, I've told you I could never do that because I was getting outraged by the people who I disagree with, by the MAGA people. But you were so calm, you were so open, and those qualities are what allowed the conversation to occur to begin with and allowed for people to feel heard and for there to be growth. I would have struggled with that, but you didn't. You did a great job at it. I think those are qualities that are desperately needed that you would bring to Congress. Tell me more about how you would see yourself as a congressperson, Allison. What do you think who would you be in there?
Well, to your point, I'm not afraid to have conversations with people who I don't necessarily agree with. Pints and Patriotism brought together veterans from across the political spectrum. And, we would sometimes have heated conversations, but they remain civil. I also, I'm not in the category of folks who's going to disown family members who don't vote like me. In fact, I try to have a relationship with them where they'll be comfortable enough to share their views with me so I can at least understand where they're coming from, and I think that is core to my leadership style. And I have I'm not going to change. I'm going to bring that leadership style to the way in which I represent the people of North Carolina's 3rd district, but also would want to engage with colleagues in Congress as well, which it's a tough place for people to be civil to each other these days. But I think we need to bring it back.
Yeah, for sure. You would be a person who could get that done. You've been doing it your whole life and your whole career.
But you have to. You can't, when you lead troops, you can't write off certain troops because they have different political views or they come from a different part of the country of you or whatever else. It's just not possible. You can't fulfill your mission if you do that, And so I think, honestly, I wish there were more veterans in Congress because they've understood and had to do that and can tap into that muscle memory, because it feels like a quality that's missing from Congress right now, but that, is sorely needed in my view.
Where do you feel like you put yourself? How do you think you'll try to identify yourself to the voters in North Carolina's 3rd district, the fighting 3rd, as Stephen Colbert would have called it on the old show? In terms of, does it matter where you are on the spectrum politically? Do you consider yourself progressive or moderate? I hate those labels, but they're shorthand and they help, in this case, voters figure out where you're at. I always want people to talk about issues. Well, where are you on healthcare, education, anything, cost of living, the environment, elder care? There's so many really important issues that affect people, and they hear certain things and decide who you are politically. Who are you politically? How do you identify that way? Obviously, you're running as a Democrat.
Yes, but I personally am a more moderate Democrat than many other Democrats. And we should want a moderate Democrat running in a seat like this, too, if we want to be able to win it. But yeah, that's just, I think everybody responds to their lived experience differently.
That's right.
But that me being a Democrat has everything to do with how I know Democratic policies played a role in my life. I tell people all the time, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, if you care about our military and our national security, you need to vote Republican. And so when I was in high school, I thought I should be a Republican. But when I got to college and I realized that the role that public schools played in my life, and then it was, because my mom, one of the smartest things she did for us growing up was move us into a good school district. And I don't know what my life would be like if I didn't go to high quality public schools growing up. And I also, I got Social Security when my dad died. So I don't know if people know this, but the Social Security helps out retirees, but there's also a survivor benefit. So when my dad passed away, my family got checks for all three of my sisters. And we went from my alcoholic dad not paying child support to getting his Social Security, which like, I didn't have to be looking at the checkbook, but I could tell the difference that made in our working class families' lives.
Right.
And it was Democrats who advocated for Social Security, which is still the greatest anti-poverty program in our nation's history. And then I mentioned this before, my stepdad, who's always been a wage worker, he worked at a grocery store when I was growing up, but he was represented by the UFCW and had a really good contract. So we had incredible healthcare through Kaiser Permanente, and also had he had a good wage. So like not just for every day, but also for when he had to do overtime, which sometimes he would choose to do overtime. Sometimes he'd get forced into doing overtime. But I just know, first of all, that many other workers after him had worse and worse contracts. But, if it wasn't for the UFCW and their ability to negotiate on his behalf, like I just don't know what my upbringing would have been like. And, because even then we still kind of lived on the edge. So anyway, as a matter of integrity, I became a Democrat when I was in college. And, and that's just, I couldn't unsee what the role, policies that Democrats played in my life. But also, I live in a world where there are a lot of hard knocks, and, I have not just a military background, but I understand that the world that we live in is dangerous and whatnot. And so I think that sort of also shapes me as well, and why I'm more moderate maybe than some other Democrats.
Personally, I've gotten to know you really well. I've reached out to you several times in kind of crisis after I lost my amazing corporate gig, when my marriage came undone. And you taught me about resilience and helped me through those difficult moments in my life, which I'll always be grateful for. Who are you? Or you mentioned your dad, of course, took his own life. He was an alcoholic. You were, I think, 13? Mentioned your stepdad a couple times. Who are the other influences? Like, who made you the person that you are, with this integrity, with this moral clarity, who built this resilience, who stepped into challenges, all kinds of challenges your whole life, including this new one? Is there a person? Is there a mentor? Is there a philosophy, a book, an experience? Is it all of it?
I would say just because of how life transpired, I had no choice but to build resilience.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that also shapes me is, it's funny because J.D. Vance's life story is really well known as well. And something that is, again, a matter of integrity for me is like, I don't know why, given some of the things that happened growing up, or like even later in life, like why I happen to be built the way that I am and have been able to, overcome having multiple adverse childhood experiences as a child, in part because I've like seen it inside my own family too. And so what motivates me is to make things a little bit easier on kids like I once was. Not to like tell everybody else to just figure it out the way that I did. And so, and I think something that also has, shaped me throughout my career is, even if I've felt disappointed by leaders, that I have a responsibility to be the leader that I wish I had for others. But, there's a saying, there's actually a fellow vet who wrote this book that says, lead yourself first.
I love that. I love all of it. And you've always wanted to be the change that you want to see. Like that's who you are. It's who you've always been. It's pretty simple, but it's real hard to do because there's a lot of obstacles in the way of that. But you have not been shy about confronting them. I'm so excited for your run. Allison Jaslow for Congress.com. I hope people will go donate 5 or 10 or as much money as they possibly can to this campaign. Unfortunately, you got to raise a lot of money to do all the things that need to get done, to hire campaign staff. You've only got about 8 weeks to do it in. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you out there and promote you and platform you. And I hope people will watch this or listen to this interview and see what I've seen from my friend Allison. I'm just so excited that you're running. And I'm really excited that we've got some amazing candidates who we can truly believe in and who aren't bought and paid for. And you are obviously always been one of those people. I can't believe you're running. I'm still in a little bit of shock because I think it's such a great opportunity for the people of North Carolina's 3rd District, but also all the rest of us to have you in Congress. What else can we do for you? Final ask or word, Allison?
Yes, I would say please donate to my campaign. If you feel like we could use more people like me in Congress, spread the word in other ways.
Yep.
I will not be upset if word gets out about me and people, not just in North Carolina, but elsewhere, want to see me succeed in this race. And then otherwise, just, send good vibes, because I think that we can win this thing. In fact, I know we can win this thing. Things are just lining up to be able to do that. And I'm really looking forward to teaching North Carolina Republicans a lesson in all of this. Yeah.
I'm real excited. Thank you, all of us, for joining live on a Sunday night. Thanks for listening on the podcast. Go to AllisonJaslow4Congress.com. If you can't remember that, it's in the show links and the notes and the show notes, I think they're called. Allison, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to having you back as often as you can in the time between now and the primary and anytime else. And I can't wait to sit in your office in the House of Representatives. Can I come and sit in the office and annoy everybody? Hey, guys.
I don't know about that. That might be something that I need to consult with staff on.
Hey, guys. I'm friends with I call her Allison. I'm friends with the Congresswoman. Hey, guys, do you guys have any lollipops or anything? Candy jar? Congrats, Allison. Thank you very much for joining me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on, Pete. Always a pleasure.
All right. There it is. Go donate. If you haven't already, Allison Jaslow, please. She's the best. I couldn't say more great things about her. She's been a great friend and mentor to me, and I have nothing but respect for her, and I really hope that she wins. That is all I've got for you today. I may be back tomorrow. I may not, because it's Taint Week. Don't expect anything. I will be hosting a hangout, I'm pretty sure, Thursday night. But hey, maybe I won't. I don't know. I hope that you are taking it easy yourself and doing okay. And I look forward to hearing from you. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com. Go support John Carroll at johncarroll.org. He writes and performs all the music for the show. Take it away, Johnny.
Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the face 'cause the freedom never goes unspent. You can see them flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand